Okay, so welcome to Oliver Art Center's 20 Questions. My name is Mercedes Michalowski. I'm Executive Director, and we're going to go into question number 1. Could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Jessica Kovan. I live in Beulah, Michigan, and I'm a mixed media artist. And I've lived up here for the last year after transplanting myself from mid-Michigan.
Awesome. So Jessica, what is your favorite medium? I know you said mixed media, but do you have a favorite medium in there?
I actually really like whatever I need to tell the story that at the time that I'm using to paint. So it's most often collage in some way, but I really grab whatever I need. I work with acrylic-based paints.
Okay, awesome. So when did your interest in art begin?
Oh my gosh, I'm probably like a lot of people. It's always been there. My father's a poet, and I can remember illustrating his poetry books as a little kid. I still have those. They're line drawings, but at least it was encouraged at the time. So it's always been there. I jumped a lot more, head foot into it in the last couple decades, but it's always been there.
Okay, so who and or what inspires you in your work?
I'm really inspired by, I want to say almost emotions, by words, by sounds, by nature. Nature's huge for me, but I often will hear I often hear phrases and think, "Ooh, I love that phrase. How can I capture that visually?" Often in songs, but those phrases usually are also emotion based, and I also pretty I really like to try to connect my paintings with things going on as well, if whether it's in the world, in my life, and how do you get that out on canvas?
So when you hear these little phrases, as you said, do you have a notebook? I mean, do you keep it to where you like quick jot it down or store it in your phone, or how do you go back and I guess record those so that you can use them as inspiration?
That would be such an intelligent thing to do. I wish I could say I did that. Usually I just go. I mean, if I think of it sort of as a muse, the muse is landing on your shoulders, and if you don't grab it right then, it's going to go away. I mean, I can't say, oh, this, I'm thinking right now, like there's a line, dancing on the edge of sanity, that I've been playing with. I can't decide if that's an Indigo Girl song. And there's also The Owl and the Pussycat, that poem with just dancing on the edge of the sand. And those two lines are working together in my mind right now with a painting I'm working on. So how do you capture that sense of dancing on the edge of the sand, but you're also dancing on the edge of sanity at the same time? If I said, oh, I really like that concept, let me see if I can work with it in 2 months from now, that doesn't work. I got to do it right now.
Okay.
So I will say I keep a list of titles, because I
Okay.
really like titles, but with regard to the emotional side of it, and when I'm really wanting to dive pretty deep into a painting to try to capture that, I have to do it when I'm feeling it.
Mhm. Well, that makes perfect sense. I was an engineering major for a couple of years, so my mind is totally opposite. I would have to write it down and probably date it and jot down where I was, and so so I admire the spontaneity and the instant gratification that you latch onto your
Yes,
music with.
yes. I do not have an engineer's mind. There's no way.
Sometimes it's a curse, I will say.
Yes.
So if your artwork were to be classified as a musical genre, what genre would it be?
I'd like to believe it's just the music I like. I think it would be indie, probably some form of indie folk. It'd probably be a little bit of country twang in there because you're pulling at the heart. um, I I think that my paintings. I think paintings and music to me work really well together, where I hope when someone sees my paintings, they do feel an emotional connection. So I would say that same genre of music.
Okay, awesome. You know, I have done, I think you are my 9th or 10th 20 questions, and every single answer to that question has been a different genre.
Oh my gosh, really?
Which is really, it's very cool. You know, it's a little guilty that I'm the one that gets to do all this and I get to, make all those connections. But so that's very cool. And that's actually the one that popped into my mind when I asked you. So,
Oh.
um, so could you give us a verbal snapshot of your work?
Oh gosh, a verbal snapshot. For some reason recently I've been working, well, except for one painting, more minimalistic. I've been trying to eliminate more from my paintings, and I love texture. So the textures, they are vibrant. There's always writing in my painting. It doesn't mean you can read it, but the writing's always there. I will write long notes in my paintings, often to my grandmother, who I loved dearly, because she's just the person that I can, and I'll tell her everything what the painting's about. The person looking at the painting's not gonna know that, but I know it's there. And what that really does is it bases me conceptually in the painting. So whether it's dancing on the edge of the sand, right now I'm working on a painting with two people dancing on the edge of Lake Michigan, but that's pretty unusual for me. I don't usually have people in my paintings. And I think they're actually aliens. That's a longer story, but that's very unusual. They're not aliens. I take that back. But sometimes when you're just thinking, where am I going? But in general, there's lines, there's horizontal. You can see that there's a landscape, but it's more the feeling I'm capturing. If I'm trying to capture fog or feeling lost, you're going to see the grayer tones. If I'm, feeling really happy, you're going to see the vibrancy. So the emotional piece will come out. It's because I've lived up here a year, it's hard not to be influenced by the landscape. And oh my gosh, it's gorgeous. So that's slowly creeping in more and more with the words. So I mean, I have buckets of words. I cut out words and I have a color wheel of words. And so, I'll decide what colors work and place those words and what words am I looking for. So I don't know if that gave you a visual snapshot. I think if I had listened to myself, I wouldn't have a clue what to
I
picture.
think
But
you did. I definitely
okay,
think you did.
okay.
So, I've seen your work and you work in beautiful colors of all different colors. So this question might not be very fair to you, but if you could only use the shades and tones of one color in your work for the next few years, what color would that be?
Oddly enough, I've been really, really drawn to shades of gray. I mean, when you can capture something without color, I think that's really impressive. The art that I see that way, that just really pulls at you, and but it's actually black and white or grays. I'm very impressed by that. I'm not sure, that's sort of intriguing to me, and I really like that. So if I had to play for a couple of years, that was probably what I would do.
Okay. Have you done that before? Have you tried that at all?
I'd keep doing, yes.
Yeah.
I have an entire series called Trapped in the Gray.
Oh, okay.
And I still like it. I still keep coming back to working that way. So I would say yes. There's something about it. I, I do love color and it's fun. And sometimes I can just stare and think, oh my gosh, that's gorgeous. But there's something about what you can capture without the color that's really amazing to me as well.
Yeah, I love the way you put that. I think that's intriguing. So what is your favorite tool in your art toolkit?
I immediately thought scissors, but that's a funny thing for a painter to say. Um, Partly because I love cutting out words. I just love cutting out words and putting words down on painting. And half the time you don't even know those words are under my paintings. But they start. I love hotel keys and credit cards, that you can just like make really harsh, random lines. Brushes are important, but I kill brushes. I mean, I kill them. So they have to be really tough brushes. Sometimes the brushes are just too good for me. So I really pick up whatever I need. My poor husband, he's like, "Can I please throw the toilet paper rolls away?" And I'm like, "No, no, no, you can't. You can't throw those away because they make great circles. Everything's a tool."
Yeah. So then, on the flip side, is there a tool that you absolutely hate to use? Your least favorite?
I banned charcoal. That's not necessarily a tool, but it is in a way. I banned it from my studio for a couple of years because it would make such a mess and I would dig such a deep hole in my paintings with charcoal. Which probably means I need to use it more. But that's the only, otherwise, no, everything's good.
Yeah.
And charcoal's back too.
Oh, okay.
It's been allowed back, but once I banned it,
Yeah.
I don't use it as much. So.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. So what is the best piece of advice you've been given?
I would say it's just to work really hard. I think you just have to. It's it's a skill as well as a passion. And when I have to, when I have to take time off, then you go backwards. So and I love watching where I go as I work hard, and how it changes and to listen to myself. But nothing, it's just, I have kids who are in sports. To me, it's just exactly the same. You have to be willing to put in the time.
Mm.
So
Very true. Very true. Okay. So do you prefer to work solo or in collaboration with others?
I definitely prefer to work solo, but I really like people. I don't want to make it sound like but I have a really hard time painting with other people. I think because my paintings are so emotionally based that I have to be allowing myself to reflect and get to that point of what I'm trying to communicate. I say that, but at the same time, I've been doing collaborative paintings with my son, which have been so much fun. He lives on the West Coast and drops in every once in a while. He has a totally different style than I do. And he's been drawing out fun, which is why I have aliens on the lake shores of Michigan. So he draws it all out and then I paint it in. And I would never draw what he draws. I mean, it's just not the way my mind works. And it's been so much fun. It's been so much fun. I don't, so that actually is new for me. And we have to both sign these paintings because neither one of us would do these alone. So they're very collaborative. But that I love that. But in general, I paint alone. But I paint out plein air paint and I paint out with friends. And I love that. I mean, you have to. And that part is good too.
Yeah. 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 I think the majority of artists I've spoken to, it's been a little bit of a mix, but ultimately it's preferred to be alone in the studio, and which makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on to one of our kind of out of the box questions. Which famous artist do you think would make a good president of the United States?
I wouldn't wish that on anyone. I think every artist should just keep being an artist. I don't think I can answer that one. Famous. It's such a different way of thinking and being.
That's very true.
I would just say she should probably be a female artist. How's that?
I like that answer.
But I'm not sure which one. Yeah.
Well, I think that's fair. Although, you know, it would be nice to see a little bit, an artistic touch in that office, I think would be, you know, a nice change. And, you know, you see so often, um, presidents that when they're out of office have discovered their creative side, like George W. is a
Right,
painter, and, you know,
right.
even Clinton was a saxophonist, so there's a musician. But,
Hmm.
um, you know, I think that it would do the country a little bit of good to have a little bit of creativity coming out of coming out of the office.
I think I was feeling more for the person. Like, really, you spend your whole life working so hard to be an artist, then you're going to stick them in the presidency?
Well, true. Yeah, that doesn't sound very fair, does it?
No, just let me paint, please.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just leave me alone.
leave me alone.
um,
Well, I just, it's interesting because I'm reading a book right now. I'm reading the book Quiet, which is about introverts. And it just, which I'm guessing the majority of artists, maybe, especially when you said most of the artists you've interviewed want to work alone. And if I'm getting this correctly, I remember it said there's only been one or two presidents who have been introverts.
mhm.
Would they classify as it? So, it may not be that the artist stereotype is, exactly who would want to be in the White House, but I understand that's different than what you were saying.
Yeah, no, but you know, I think
Yeah,
that's a good thought to have, though. Really,
yeah.
that should be maybe on our next round of questions, is asking people if they're an introvert or an
For an
extrovert.
extrovert.
Yeah,
Hmm.
because the ones that'll get you are the introverts that fake it and appear extroverted. So,
Yes.
um, so we'll move on. We'll get back on track. So, what is
Yeah.
your favorite meal?
Meal or food item,
Either or.
or either. I really love potatoes. I just love potatoes. You can do anything to potatoes, and I love them. I, it must be my comfort food. Drives my kids crazy.
Yeah,
It
I
probably
think.
shows that I'm Midwestern.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a very versatile vegetable, I guess. Um, okay, so what type of art or which artist hangs on the walls in your home?
I have my own work, but I have a lot of friends. Um, I adore Mark Mahaffey, and I have a number of Mark's pieces, and they just make me happy. And many of my friends from up here, that many of the artist friends. So that is predominantly, I love, especially my studio, I'm surrounded by other artists that I know. Um, it just feels like I'm getting one big hug. And, I like supporting them, but I also love their work. And it, they're inspiring. And and so it just, I mean, I think art should make you happy. And they all, it just makes me happy to have them in my home with me.
Mhm. Kind of like a little built-in support system.
Yeah. They don't even know it, but they're there.
Yeah, they
Yes.
don't even know it. Easiest
Right,
job in the
right.
world. So, what advice would you give your younger self?
I I did a career change to be a full-time artist. So I have my doctorate in education, and then about 15 years ago, not in art education, but in adult education. And about 15 years ago, made the change to be a full-time artist. There's a part of me that wishes, I had pursued art from my early 20s on, but I wouldn't be who I am now if I'd done that. So I, um, I don't know. So I think from that end, I wish, I guess I wish I had pursued it, right? I wanted to go to art school and then chose not to. Um, s- just, it feels a little bit like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to catch up. I'm trying to catch up. But on the other hand, you are who you are because of the path you took. So it's where
Very.
I'm. So yeah, I would say that, sometimes it's just putting yourself forward, because in front, and just maybe keeping that brush in my hand all the time, because it's easier to do everything else. Like I was such a soccer mom, still a soccer mom, so I was driving my kids everywhere. But I will say I always had paintbrushes in the car with me. So yeah.
Wonderful. So definitely patience and tenacity, I think.
Yeah.
So if you could time travel backward or forward to safely make art, what date or time period would you choose?
You know, I I'm really so happy where I have finally landed. I don't want to time travel. Can I just be here?
Yeah, there's no rules.
I worked really hard. I don't want to go forwards or backwards right now. I want to be really present.
Yeah.
It feels like the time in my life where I can be. And so that's a really funny. I mean, I know you're going to allow me to come back and be present again. I would think I'd have to go forward. I don't think I would want to go backwards. That's not my mode of operation.
Mhm.
But I'm pretty happy where I'm at.
Yeah. So kind of just to deviate a little bit from that, is
Mhm.
there a specific art movement or an art time period that fascinates you, or that you're inspired by, or anything like that? Just
I would say that, really probably the early 1900s, as people were really sort of breaking away from traditional. Um, I I just love looking at art, but I do really like it more where it started becoming more abstracted, more collage, more mixed media.
mhm.
So it would be that time period.
Okay. All right. So is there anything that you have to have when you're making art in your studio? Is it a certain music, a certain coffee cup, any kind of thing that you have to have each time you sit down to make art?
I started by thinking water. I have to have water. It's really hard to paint without water. Um, Music, usually, every once in a while, I'll realize I needed to quiet the world and I don't have music. But in general, I almost always have music going. And, paintings don't paint in one day. So if I start out a painting that's a pretty deep, quiet, subdued painting, I often will put that kind of music on to keep me in that mood. Um, and the opposite, oh, this is, my the aliens dancing on the beach. That's the funniest thing that I keep coming back to. Um, that again is you want upbeat, happy movie playing in the background, so that I keep my strokes, my paint brush and stuff moving that way. The vibrancy I'm feeling. So I guess I'm answering with music.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so is there a gallery or museum that you would love to have your work featured in? And if so, which one?
Um, I, I I think every artist probably aspires to thinking, oh gosh, wouldn't it be amazing to have my art in museums? But really, what's most meaningful to me is when people are touched by my art. I I do. I mean, I have my paintings in galleries, and I just get a note from my gallery director saying she sold a painting, and it was all about hope. The whole painting was about hope, and it was purchased by a woman who has a friend going through cancer treatments, and she bought it for her. That's what makes me really happy. So
Yeah.
it's more that my paintings help, and they heal people, they touch people, they, they help, they just, um, they provide a different way to to deal with emotions. I mean, I guess the word I keep coming back to is healing, but we don't all have to be healed. It's more just that understanding, maybe the communication piece that can happen. So that may be, I mean, of course there's many galleries I aspire to.
Mhm.
And just I walk through and look at people's work and go, oh, it's gorgeous. And same with museums. But in the long run, that my art has touched people.
Okay. So, the ultimate question, how do you know when a work is finished?
I'm such a deadline person. Oh my gosh, I'm such a deadline person. It's a curse, like, oh my gosh, it has to be done, it has to be done. So it's usually at the point I have to take it somewhere and it has to be done. And then when I get it back, I keep working on it. I think when you're satisfied. So what I usually do is I always start with a concept. I always start with a concept. I don't understand how people paint without a concept. And then I will often write that on the back of my painting or write it down. I journal a lot. I journal every morning. And so I'll journal about that concept. So to me, it's if I can step back and look at the painting and say, have I communicated my concept? Then I'll say, and then you start looking, okay, and is there balance, is there rhythm, all those pieces. But in general, has the concept been communicated?
Okay. So then finally, where can we find your work?
You can find my work online. You can find my work at my website, which is Jessica Kovan. And Instagram, I'm pretty avid Instagrammer. I also, I do have my paintings in galleries in Synchronicity in Glen Arbor and Blue North Arts in Suttons Bay. And then in Columbus, but it's New Albany and down in Ohio. So Lansing Art Gallery. So you can see it in spattering. And I so appreciate the gallery. Somehow that's a way to be able to touch people who wouldn't find me via my website. And then I'm also on Daily Paintworks. So I try to post a painting daily on Daily Paintworks. So variety of different ways.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's good though. At least I found that our visitors and our, I guess, art consumers, as I like to call them, have many different modes of finding what they're looking for. And so it's great to have social media, website, in person. And so that's always
I think
good.
you need it all. Yeah.
You kind of do nowadays, don't you?
You do.
Yeah. So is there anything, Jessica, that you want to talk about with your art that maybe I didn't touch on, or anything else that you want to share? I mean, this is your opportunity to.
The only thing I guess I didn't talk about was the fact that I also do teach. I'm teaching coming up at Oliver, and I really enjoy teaching. I mean, that's what I was doing before I became full-time artist. And it's fun to share my mode of painting with people. I'm always surprised when, I'll say to people, make a sad mark, and they'll say, what? Or make a happy mark. And so, and then, when you try going from the conceptual piece of what you want to communicate and how can you do that. So I really enjoy the teaching as well. It also keeps me interacting with people, which, as an artist alone in your studio, isn't always, sometimes it gets scary to get back out there in the world.
You get very comfortable in your silo. And
I get really comfortable. Yes, exactly. So I think that, that's another piece that I truly enjoy. And I think it's very good for me so.
That's what I was just going to ask is do you find that, when you're teaching, you're obviously conveying, your thoughts and your, inspiration to the students, but do you get that in return when you teach?
Yes, 100%, 100%. Yes, it's so good for my soul. Yeah, it's a good thing. So yeah, it's a two-way street, that's for sure. Plus, it forces me to be able to put words to what I'm doing, and that's important as well.
Yeah, most definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wonderful. Well, Jessica, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me and answer our questions.
Thank you. They were fun.
Well,
thanks.
Again, thank you again. And, I look forward to seeing your aliens dancing Lakeshore.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good rest of the day. All right.